Hello there, happy Saturday and welcome to another vlog where we will be working on some revision prep brainstorming sort of tasks. If you're new here, my name is Marta. I'm an aspiring author who hopes to be self-published sometime in the next decade, and I am working on my debut fantasy trilogy project site. I'm currently working on the second book in the trilogy and we are getting ready to jump into the second draft of the second book in the series. If you saw my last video, you'll see that I recently finished rereading that draft after not touching it for a very long time, and I was very excited about it when I finished reading it. I was very happy with it for first draft and I was very looking forward to jumping into revisions. Unfortunately, I finished filming that video 2 weeks ago and we still haven't touched it since. After I finished the reread, I gave myself 1 week off on purpose, which was meant for me to catch up on video editing, but also I had some other bits going on. And I just sort of gave myself that week to let the book rest for a week, let myself process what I just read before jumping straight into revisions. And I think that was a mistake because when I then went back into attempting to work on it 1 week later, I was still excited for it. That excitement from that reread hadn't gone away, but the feelings of, oh shit, this is actually a lot of work, and mostly I don't know if I have the skills to do that work and to make this book actually good, went up to the point where those feelings were above the excitement to work on the book, and I got really overwhelmed. And then I didn't touch it for another week, so I took 1 week off on purpose and 1 week off by accident, effectively. But that being said, I don't think those feelings are going to go away until I actually start, so we're gonna do what I like to do when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and that is to make a list. So of course this is me we're talking about, so when I said I was making a list, I did indeed mean a Notion page. So I've got a little cover image at the top, which sort of shows one of the locations, or how I see one of the locations in my head for the second book, which is very exciting. If I show you on my overall project site list, this is the original image, which is more book 1 sort of image, and then book 2 looks a lot darker, so I'm very pleased with that little change in mood in the Notion page, which also reflects the change in mood in the book. And then I've basically divided what I need to do into general things and then by acts as well. So my general category is the difficult stuff. Effectively, I've got big plot issues that sort of affect the entirety of book 2 as a whole. They're not limited to one act or a different act, it's like the entire book. And then I have series level issues which affect the entire trilogy. This is by far the scariest thing on this list, and I will not be touching it today, but I have a list of what needs to be done, so I feel better for the list. Doesn't mean I'm mentally prepared to open the list though. And then the final thing up here is like this fun sort of category with easy things, and that is because I feel like brainstorming for something like fixing plot holes and fixing a book, I feel like that is something that's effectively problem solving, and I am an engineer and I do problem solving for a living. So this category is basically things that I can do that are easy, so that when I come home from work after having spent 8 hours problem solving a technical problem and I get home and I'm really tired, I don't then want to sit down and problem solve a fantasy trilogy. I want to do something fun. So things like these are fun. Working on my project playlist is like the lowest of low-hanging fruit, but it's just something to keep me thinking about the book and thinking about the project on days where I might not have the mental capacity to do anything harder, and that way it still feels like I have that forward momentum throughout the week, and like I'm not forgetting what I was working on throughout the week, so that when it then comes back to Saturday and I have time and mental energy to work on stuff again, I'm already in the brain space of working on this project, and it should make it a little bit easier. I hope. That's the plan anyway. And I have a bunch of research spiral suggestions in here which are hidden away, but those are actually useful things that I need to do, but they're a little bit easier. So And then for each of my acts, I've divided a little bit differently. So I've got plot, world building, and characters. Now, what needs the most work in this draft is plot. And there's two categories in here, which is things to add to the outline. So things that I already know I'm missing. And it's just a matter of sitting down with this list, sitting down with my outline and figuring out where those things are gonna go and how I'm rearranging it. And then there's plot holes, which is, again, things that need to be fixed in the outline, but things that need to be brainstormed first. So I need to figure out how to change existing stuff that's there to make it make sense. And then world building and characters is fairly self-explanatory. I don't have that divided out. I do have these spoiler tags for anything I don't want you to see yet, because this is a sequel and I'm not gonna spoil book 1 and book 2 to you at the same time. But a couple of these are fairly harmless, so like fleshing out locations, fleshing out characters and relationships between characters. And I'm not gonna scroll down any further than this, but I have done this for acts 2 and 3 as well. So I'm fairly confident that everything that needs to be done so that I can work on the second draft of this book and so I can make the second draft of this book at the level that I want it to be is in this list. I am feeling a little bit less overwhelmed than I was this morning. I think even just writing out what I'm missing was enough for my brain to start thinking about it and to start coming up with ideas. So I don't think I'm gonna be touching this today, because that's just really scary, and I don't think I'm gonna be working on this either. I think for today I need a bit of an easier win just to get past that fear of jumping into a brand new draft. So these two things are too hard and this is too easy. So I guess the next thing to work on is going to be this. Hello. It's actually going pretty well. I have been brainstorming out some of the plot holes, as I mentioned. I'd like to be able to give you like a number of plot holes and how many I've fixed. Unfortunately, some of them are sort of interconnected, and also as I've been solving some of them, I've been noticing more. So I've ticked off some of that list, and then the list got longer. But I think we're getting somewhere. I think I figured out most of Act 1 at this point, not in order, so like I haven't done an outline or anything yet, but I think I'm getting through most of the issues and I'm figuring out what needs to happen. I've only been working on plot issues so far today, so I haven't touched any of the character development bits or world building development bits, but plot was the thing that needed the most work and that I was the most anxious to get to, because it's the bit that I'm least confident that I can do. I'm pretty confident in my ability to make compelling characters and flesh out characters, and the world building stuff is not that difficult because I've already done the bulk of the work in book 1 and this is just new bits that I need to figure out. But the plot stuff, like, that's kind of really hard for me at the minute, and I'm happy that I started with it. I'm glad that I've gotten quite a bit of it sorted out. It is currently 4:30 in the afternoon. I've been working on this basically the entire day, and I'm also streaming in 2 hours, and I want to continue working on my book during the stream. So I think I'm going to be taking like a 2-hour break before my stream. I know I said that the stuff on the fun list was for Monday to Friday, so it would give me something to do after work. I am very tempted to start working on the playlist, because I could do some crochet while I work on the playlist, and that would just be so nice. Good morning. In a very surprising turn of events, it is actually sunny today, so we're gonna make the most of it and we're gonna go on a brainstorming walk. It is still absolutely freezing though. Let's go. So I feel like yesterday was a very active brainstorming day. I spent most of my time asking myself what if questions and then writing out really detailed replies, and then each of those brought me to more questions and it sort of like spiraled from there. Today on the other hand has been a much more passive brainstorming day. I went on my walk, I've been listening to my project playlist, and I've just been allowing those things that I brainstormed yesterday to just sort of continue brewing in the back of my mind, like not sitting down and figuring out the pros and cons and like all of the logistics and what's gonna happen, but instead letting myself daydream a little bit, letting myself imagine the scenes to some music and just seeing what sticks and what doesn't stick. But having said that, I would like to get into something a little bit more active today as well. I think I've probably done not enough, but like enough work on Act 1 that I can start thinking about re-outlining that act, even if it's just to see what I'm still missing and to see what I need to spend more time brainstorming. So I think I'm gonna have my first attempt at that today, but before I do, I thought it'd be interesting to show you how I structure my outlines in Notion and how I structure them so that I can use that same outline across multiple drafts and so see how things change. So let me share my screen with you real quick. So this is the spread I was working on yesterday, and as you can see I added this little brainstorming on the Act 1, and I've just been, I'm not gonna open that up for you, but that's like 4 pages worth of notes in there. It's a lot. But I think at this point I've not touched world building and I've not touched characters yet, so things are gonna change in the outline once I do that, especially around the world building bits. There's some mechanics that are actually relevant to the plot that I need to figure out. But I think we've got enough here to go into my outline and take a bit of a look. So this is my project page for this. I've got a first book and a second book. And what I'm gonna do before I do anything else is just duplicate draft 1 of that outline. And I'm just going to name this draft 1. And this is going to be like a little outline archive. And now we're going into my actual outline document. So for obvious reasons, I'm going to hide away anything spoilery, but I'm using a 9-part outline structure. And this is what this first section is. So I've got my 9 parts just sort of written out what they are. Then I've got in this outline column like a little short description of what happens, and then inside each of these are my brainstorming notes for when I was actually doing the first pass of the outline for writing the first draft. I don't actually think I'm going to be using this for the second draft because I've already done the bulk of that work and now I'm more on a chapter by chapter outline mind frame, which is what's down here. So this is my actual chapter by chapter outline, which I use a lot more, and I've got what part it's in, what the chapter number is, and as you can see, actually this needs that as well. As you can see, I've got that key 1 in each of these columns, so chapter, part and word count, which is draft 1. So when I go into draft 2, I will be creating new columns, and that way when I then look back on this, I can see where the chapter used to be and where it's moved. And I can hide columns from here, so what I normally do is when I'm working on the second draft, draft 1 will still be visible. When I move on to the third draft, I will hide draft 1 and then I'm looking at draft 3 and draft 2. So I'm always looking at my current draft and one draft before. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going back to my draft 2 prep tech list that I have. And I have this things to add to the outline category, which I've been adding notes to as well as I was working through plot holes and as I was working through this brainstorming. So even though this is like 4 or 5 pages of notes, anytime I stumbled upon something that's like, okay, I actually want to add this particular thing to the outline, that went in there. So what I have to do now is open that up, look at my actual outline, and then read all the things and get them into it, basically. I think I did enough brainstorming yesterday that this is not going to be too difficult, so hopefully we'll get through that quite quickly. So that took a bit longer than I was expecting it to, but I've basically added in anything that I brainstormed yesterday, and I added like little questions for myself where there was things that I was still unsure about so that I can keep brainstorming. And then I did another pass and went through some of those questions and did a bunch more brainstorming. And I've basically just been like going up and down Act 1 sort of in chronological and reverse chronological order at least 3 times. And I think I've got something that I'm happy with now. There's 2 outstanding questions left, but I'm honestly so happy with the amount of progress I've been able to do this weekend. I'm generally the sort of person that tells themselves that brainstorming is a slow process that needs to happen over many months for ideas to really have a chance to develop. And I was just trying to push myself this weekend to actually say like, I don't need a month to brainstorm a book. I can do it in a weekend. Obviously, like, I can't, but I got much further than I think I normally would have. I am very pleased with the amount of work that I've been able to put into the draft this weekend, and I'm looking forward to actually jumping into revisions. I think I've decided that I'm not going to spend too much time and attention on figuring out the rest of the series and the rest of the book. I think I want to keep going with just focusing in on Act 1 at the minute, and there have been some ideas crop up for the rest of the series as I'm brainstorming Act 1, so when that happens I'm spending some time on that, but I don't want it to be my focus right now. I think Act 1 is still quite self-contained, just as Book 1 in the series was, and it's from Act 2 and especially Act 3 in the second book that we really get some of that late in the series stuff that I need to figure out. And I'm just excited to get back into drafting, so I don't see why I would stop myself from drafting just to figure out some information that I don't actually need yet. We'll get there when we get there, and when we do get there I might regret this decision, but I think I'm just going to focus on finishing all of this brainstorming I need to do for Act 1. There's still that one character I really need to develop, and there's the world building stuff I need to do. But I want to get through that quickly and get into drafting quickly, and I'm very excited to do that. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to let me know how your own projects are going and what you're currently working on, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye bye.